Hello guys, I'm Veyselat, one of your CS201 TAs. Today I will introduce you classes and a special class which we are using in our university, robot class. Let's start with classes. Classes is the main thing that what an object-oriented language basically. We create objects from those classes. I make ready a class for you, which is a car class. Today we will see how can we use classes, not how to write classes, but how can we use classes. Uh, these class files are written by someone else, let's say. Then you can use it in your CPP file and in your project. Let's see. I have those files and I can match with these files in my project. Let's go to our project, which names my class. I'm going to my class. Yeah, this is our project files, and you can paste them in here. Now we should add those files. For the header files, every class, um, not necessarily, but it's advised that to implement classes in that way to have a good looking project. First we should add our header file, then our CPP file. I'll come to point at what are those things. Okay, you can think a class as a huge book, okay? There are lots of things inside this book, but the header file is only the cover of that book. You know, uh, before you buy a book, you look at the cover, right? What kind of thing this book will tell you, and what are the things inside this book. The header part is that part actually, the cover, and the .cpp file is the implemented version of that header files, the real part of the book, which you read actually. Let's continue with the header file. Um, this is the syntax of how you define classes, and you don't have to know it at that moment actually. But when you look at the header file, you should be able to understand what this class is doing actually. And there's a confusing part maybe for you, private and public. Those are called access modifiers. Access modifiers, which decides to make visible, let's say visible is the right word I think, to other CPPs and other classes with these class. If a variable or a function is private, then it is only reachable from the class that it defined. Okay, so you can't reach, sorry about this, um, you can't reach that class files, variables or functions other than other CPP files or other classes, but the public part is reachable from every part of the code, and of course if you include this header and CPP file, and we'll come to that point as well, then those things are called instance variables. Instance variables or private variables. Okay, and for a car, let's say what kind of features that car should have. Year, model, and speed. Let's say you can add something like color, or you can increase those things. And the public part, this is a special function which is called constructor. Every class should have its constructor to create its object, okay? And constructors can also take parameters. This is the same thing as writing, but not. Let me give you an example of how to use it. We write something like integer x, right? This is an, let's say, a constructor of creating an integer variable. So just like integer, our car class will have its own constructor, and we will create our objects with using this constructor. And I have 4 functions right here, and they are called member functions. Until now you have learned free functions. You can implement them in your main CPP and use wherever you want. This is the main reason you call them free functions. But member functions only can be called via a class object, okay? And this is make an object-oriented language beautiful actually. this is the part you implemented them, but at that point we are not expecting you to implement those functions, but by the course will go, you should be able to implement them. Okay, now let's create a source file and try to use those functions and these classes. Let me add a new item. Let's say source.cpp. I will copy paste this part and add something else. What I will add is the class I wrote. Actually, I copied a bit, but anyway, yeah. Until now, we use those lesser and bigger than size to include something, but at that point, you should also know how to add those things. That these things are mean that those libraries, those classes you want to use are built in Visual Studio, so it searches those built-in folders first. But if you do something like that, it searches the folder that your project files are in first. So I copied my car.header and car.cpp file in the folder that I created my project, so I just use this notation. Let's continue. So, how to use a constructor? A constructor is basically your class name, okay, car, then your object name, let's say my car, then the parameters that the constructor needs. It tells me it takes 2 integer parameters. Okay, uh, the first one was year, the second one is speed. Okay, then let's say let us have an old car and speed is 50. Okay, so we are done. Now we have an object. Now I will introduce another important thing, which is how to use a member function. We said that member functions can only be used on some objects. So in that case, my object is my car, right? I will use my object name, then I will put a dot, then I can see all the functions that I can use. Okay, let's accelerate it first. Does it take any parameters? Let us have a look. Yeah, it takes a speed parameter. Let's accelerate our car, let's say 20. Okay, and then see my speed. My car dot display speed. When I run this code, I can see, you know, the car that I have has the speed of 70. That's it basically. The basic notions of car and classes and member functions and constructors. Now we will use these things in your homeworks, but in a different class which you should learn. In the next video, I will try to explain those things to you. Okay, see you guys.